You got to be to the left of the...
Hello everyone and welcome to Whole Latte Love live streams. My name is Zach.
My name is John.
And today we're going over a pretty exciting topic. We cover it quite often here, especially with a lot of different customers. It's grinding. Grind size, grinders, anything to do with grinding, espresso, all that fun stuff.
And what that means is we're covering dialing in.
Yes.
Figuring out your right grind size, that is the process of dialing in, and that's what we're going to really get into today. We're going to get into quite a bit with different devices that you can use to help out. We're going to use a different number of grinders, different levels of grinders, and we're going to do it with 2 different espresso machines as well. so that we can give you a pretty grand view of what it looks like to find the right grind size for your coffees.
Yeah, I honestly feel like I can pull a good shot on most machines, but a lot of that is dictated by the grinder itself. Not a lot of people know about how important that step is, getting a good grinder. And we'll again have the comment section right down below if you have any questions as we're moving along there. We also have Mark inside the chat to help us along, but please feel free to be active down there. We're constantly looking at it, and we love questions.
That's right. Yeah, Mark, thanks for helping out today. We've also got Ron behind the boards helping out. Hey, Ron. And also, hey, don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel so that whenever we do one of these live streams, you'll be notified. Also, for everything coffee that we have coming out, both in terms of products, reviews, ideas, just thoughts we have, keep an eye on that as well. Be sure to subscribe.
So when it comes to dialing in and this process of finding your grind size, I mean, it can be a difficult process. We can get kind of frustrated. I mean, back in the day, it used to be, train engineers and engineers in general that used to be the only people who could pull your shots on these very difficult to use machines that on occasion would explode. Now, things have come quite a long ways now.
Yeah, we're not exploding anymore.
No. Yeah, but we are still dealing with pressure and variables, a lot of variables, and we actually have a bunch of tools and grinders to help you along with that, so you can kind of get the best cup as reliably as possible. So reliably as possible, that really means to me that it's going to be as consistent as possible when it comes to your grinder. You're going to have to dial in things kind of every day when it comes to espresso. You can't really expect a machine or grinder or anything to really stay exactly where it needs to be all the time. So
that's right.
You need to kind of go through these constant processes, but luckily we have tools and grinders that are going to stay as close to dialed in as you would like.
You've also got us to help with that, and that's why we're doing this today. And speaking of, Zach, what actually are we working with today?
All right, so when it comes to equipment of how to pull espresso, which maybe we need a little bit of a definition on espresso soon, but first off, you're going to need an espresso machine. So that's going to be something that can actually pull coffee under pressure, right?
Right. And today we've got two of them, by the way.
Yeah. So today we're actually going to be pulling on a Gaggia Classic E24, so that's a brass boiler. And what we're looking at that is that it's a great entry-level machine, top-tier entry-level machine that'll be really consistent with your temperatures and have a standard 58 millimeter basket. So if you do upgrade to something like the Ride behind us here, which is a dual boiler, you can use a lot of the same baskets or different tools that you've acquired through your hobby to kind of graduate into the next area without having to get all new things for the next machine.
Right, yeah. Yeah, for example, these are all 58 millimeter tampers, distribution tools, baskets that we have here. So even on a $4.99 machine like the Gaggia Classic, you can use all of these same tools on a higher level dual boiler like the Profitec Ride, for example.
Yeah, and you'll see lots of other different kinds of size baskets as well, with 54 millimeter baskets and deeper baskets as well that you might have to grind a little bit different, but what's really important is the consistency of that grind. So as we grind out these coffee beans here, they're all going to grind a little bit different. And that has to do with the density of the bean.
Right.
So they're going to grind out into all of these different kinds of particle sizes. And we actually have different size burrs and different burrs for different variables that you want to include within your grind size to maybe create more fines that create more restriction or have more clarity due to the similarity or the uniformity of all of the different grind sizes that you're using for this. So something like the Magnifico right behind us here, that's a great entry-level one of a flat burr grinder that won't dissipate too much heat whatsoever, so it won't transfer to your beans that will actually affect variables like that. So I know we're already getting pretty crazy where heat dissipation and all these different things will start affecting with the flavor of your bean, but let's go ahead and just start getting down to the basics of grinding and what you're looking for when feeling out that grind. So, John, let's go ahead and grind out some beans, and where you would kind of start on a simple, basic hopper-fed grinder over there.
Yeah, you know what, Ron? If you can show us this machine over here. This is the Gadget Classic E24. Like Zach said, this is the Eureka Mignon Magnifico. This actually has diamond inside burrs. They're basically just cryonically treated to be harder and cut even better. So what I would do with most grinders, by the way, is I want to get the 0 point. And here's what you're going to do. We're going to grind, and I'm going to just keep going finer until I hear the burrs touch. And I'm already starting to get it right there. In fact, I'll lean in just a little bit so you can maybe hear it on my microphone. Let's see. Hear that?
Now, you might think that this sounds a little bit scary, but this won't harm the burrs. I mean, don't keep it there for all means, but each kind of grinder you can find the 0 point, and it's just kind of that point of, okay, so that's 0. I don't want to go any finer than that. And then when dialing in a new coffee, typically you can kind of make a gradual step up from there to find maybe your first point of, pulling a shot, and maybe it's too slow. Or you go a little bit coarser and it's pulling way too fast, and then we find somewhere in the middle. So we call this triangulation. And knowing our start point will help this triangulation method.
Right. Now, what I would do with this grinder right here, now that we know where that 0 point is, I'm just going to back off from that 0 point just a little bit. So let's see, we were right about there. I think that was about 5.5, I want to say. I'm going to bring this back to, let me make it about maybe a half turn back this way, coarser. And I get a feeling that we're going to be somewhat where we want to be as far as our shot time that we want, which is about 25 seconds or so with this particular coffee. I'll bet we're going to be somewhat close to that. Should we?
This is the true test of your skill, John.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Maybe we should. You want to find out, or you want to go through?
Yeah, let's go ahead and find out. So
yeah.
While you grind out some, let's go ahead and just grind out some inside the cup, so we can start actually looking at the visual, what we're looking at visually when we're kind of like picking apart these different grinds. Sometimes it's good when you grind out a grind size that you actually like and that's pulling really well. Get used to the feeling of that inside your hand. So it's not going to be like a coarse salt or anything. It's like a fine sand is kind of what we're looking for. And over time, when you're kind of broadly trying to dial in different grind sizes, you can actually start feeling for it as well. So typically when I grind out on a new grinder, I'll feel it out a little bit. So I'm like, I know I'm just about there when I grind. And then once I'm just about there, I'll use like a triangulation method from there, and then figure out what kind of tools that I need to succeed as well. So as we can see here, there's kind of a, well, actually it's a little bit hard to see. I'm just gonna pour this all the way out.
There we go, let's
make a mess.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so if you can see here, there's actually a lot of what we call clumping. So clumping is when you have these big clumps of static electricity that all these little fines and everything will actually start clinging in. And these will actually make little pockets of like high density areas and perform what is basically called bypass. So bypass, it's your water moving and taking the path of least resistance. Wherever it finds least resistance is going to take, and then you'll actually see that if you have a bottomless portafilter, that's usually the tool that we use, so you can start seeing it kind of splatter all over the place. So how we get rid of things like this are little tools like WDT tools can also do that. And then the reason why we got that is static, so we can actually use RDT tools, so Ross droplet, so a little bit of water will cut down that static, that initial static, so we won't clump as much. There's some grinders that have anti-clumping technology within the grinder, so it won't happen, but nothing a little tool won't fix, especially as you go into winter when there's not too much moisture in the air or anything. You'll probably see it anyways.
Yeah, and a lot more static electricity in the winter as well. You might see it even more then, absolutely.
All right, so as I'm feeling this grind here, I can actually kind of roll it around inside my hand. It feels like a fine salt, like salt or a fine sand, like I was at the beach or something like that. And also another thing that we look at is if you can kind of pinch it, and it kind of keeps that like stiff peak, where it kind of peaks out, and you could create little mountains inside your grind size. That's usually a good place to start.
And you want it to stay there, right? You want to be able to pinch it like that, and it doesn't just fall apart, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's not falling apart. My little peak here is still there, structurally sound. So if that's structurally sound, I feel confident that that is a good place for us to start.
Okay. Geez, I didn't do too bad on this one, huh?
No.
I mean, we'll find out the real way, but shall I pull a shot?
Let's pull a shot.
All right, let's do it. I'm going to do 16 grams of ground coffee. I'm going to want to dial in this grinder as well. I've got it set for 6.5 seconds right now.
All right, so 16 grams. This might be our first initial question of how we got to this 16 gram point. Well, it's all based off of your basket. So as John's preparing his shot over here, let's talk about baskets a little bit. Whew. So I have a whole bunch of baskets here. It's actually fantastic how many baskets and how precise we are these days on how to create these baskets. And you know, back in the day, it was less precise and all over the place, and it really enables that bypass, that ability to find that path of least resistance throughout, and you never know what's going on, and some baskets you favor more than others, but even your stock baskets these days come with very precise baskets. They're usually ridged on the side as well. That's to kind of better suit your ability to first kind of get into espresso is that ridge, because a lot of the pressure, when you first build up pressure, the bypass actually happens off to the side.
Of the side of the puck?
So the side of the puck, it wants to follow those walls. So actually having these ridges, it helps out a little bit. So you'll notice that when you actually maybe move to something with straight walls, really, really straight walls like this.
Yeah, can you hold those up? Let's see that,
Yeah,
that little
let's go ahead
tape.
and-
How about the other one? Hold that up next to it as well.
I think the camera's over here. So you'll see that these particular baskets with straight walls along the side, those are more likely to bypass. So you'll see a lot of channeling, a lot of bypass and different things like that because of that, and instead of these rim baskets.
With this little taper down at the bottom that kind of tells the water to go into the center of the basket, yeah.
Now newer baskets as well, you might start seeing the bottom actually kind of flange out like that, and that's actually to help enable it to take the path towards the center, and you'll also see that the holes in the basket aren't rim to rim because of the fact that it would want to bypass towards the side. So it's really enabling it to extract the majority of the center of that puck as evenly as possible. So if you're having a lot of issues with seeing your shot splatter all over the place, or maybe a little bit watery of shots or anything like that, sometimes a little bit of upgrade to something like this is a good thing. But the first thing is also your dose inside these baskets.
Right.
So you'll see a lot of these say 21 grams. This Big Bang specifically is 20-something grams.
That's a big one.
Yeah, so we have some really large ones here, but it all depends on the coffee.
Right. And speaking of which, I ended up with 16.5 grams here, so a little bit more than what I was looking for, but I think we can still work with it.
Perfect. So now that we have our shot inside our basket, we can kind of look at it from here. Mm-hmm. So does it look well distributed? Are we seeing any of those clumps that we're talking about? What kind of distribution tools do we need from here? We can kind of visually inspect, and then we have the tools on standby to kind of help however we need. So with this, I don't think there's too much that we want to do here on our first shot. We're still dialing in. Mm-hmm. I think it looks pretty well distributed. Maybe we can use a tool like a distribution tool to kind of level it flat. Or we can just go ahead and go straight to a tamp. Now, when doing that can cause some issues as well, right?
Right. Well, in many ways, yeah. Now, the reason that I like to use a leveling tool like this, for example, is right now I'm seeing a little bit of a mound of coffee on my basket, just a little bit of a mound. And I could use my hands, or I can try to tap it level. But just to make sure that I'm really getting a nice level bed of coffee, I am going to go ahead and use my leveler. I'm just going to put it right on there like that.
Now, why does this part matter, right?
Now this matters, I'm glad you asked, Zach, because getting an even extraction is really important. If you've got a big mound of coffee over here and not very much coffee over here in your basket, you are going to under extract where that big mound is and over extract where there's not that much coffee. And in general, under extraction tastes a little sour, over extraction tastes quite a bit bitter. So you're gonna have both sour and bitter, so you're gonna have this unfocused, just kind of mess of a flavor in your shot. So
and pretty soon here, we're going to talk about the kinds of shots that you'd be pulling and how to kind of combat that with grind size and extraction and all that fun stuff. But looks like we have a couple comments, actually more than a few.
Oh, yeah.
Hello, everyone. Let's see. James, good morning. Let's see.
hey,
Wow, so
we
many
got
comments.
yeah,
Hello,
we got a.
everyone.
Oh yeah, I see Jeff. You can chat into our website on the Mechanica Max. They may be able to help you just kind of roll through some of the PID menu and get you where you need to be. Also, yeah, Mark has a good recommendation for you there too. The Bizarra Magica PID and the Silencio 55. I'm glad you're here. Happy to give you a little crash course on dialing in.
Yeah, and the cool thing about Eureka's and what we're actually doing over here with the Magnifico, they're all very similar. So still doing that same zeroing in technique will kind of guide you in the right path for success on that. Then you'll find a lot of the other Eurekas as well now have a big king dial as well, so you don't kind of lose track or anything, and it can actually count how many rotations you have. So be on the lookout for that on some of our newer Eureka grinders.
And we have a timely video. We got an E24, and we got ground espresso, the Ilian Tenzo. It's going too fast. And yeah, Mark is, hey, thanks, Mark. If you're using pre-ground, you probably want to use the pressurized basket. I don't disagree.
Yep.
And what you could also do is dose a little bit higher, Tony, to help create a little more restriction so that shot takes a little bit longer. You may reach a point where you can't dose anymore. It might be way too close to the screen. And again, I think the pressurized basket is going to help with that. When you're ready, I definitely encourage getting your hands on a grinder as well. That's going to change your entire game. You're going to have a blast.
Definitely. It'll provide a little bit more of that CO2. That is actually our first restriction when it's actually within this pressurized environment. We're relying on CO2 to be the restrictor. It not only gives crema, but it's also restricting the shot from blasting out in 10 seconds, a lot of the case, which is why when you pull old coffee, it tends to just kind of bypass straight through. You're not getting a crema, there's no restriction, and you have a lot of issues with flow as well.
That introduces the entire concept of fresh roasted coffee is just filled with so much CO2. There's a ton of gas still in fresh roasted coffee. So, but and to your point, Zach, that's also why when it comes to espresso, we typically don't want really fresh coffee. There's just so much gas in there that it's going to create so much pressure inside of your group head. I like to wait until about like 5 to 7 days before I even start pulling shots of a coffee myself.
Yeah, and there's some techniques that you can actually use with like low flow techniques of flow control that you can kind of put that rule out of the water, but it takes a lot of dialing in, and I usually suggest people to wait that long.
Oh yeah, and especially if you're working with something like a Gaggia Classic, you won't have those flow control options. So I would just instead make sure that your coffee is aged properly. I begin, like I said, about 5 to 7 days off roast, and I'm pretty lenient when it comes to how long I'll drink coffee for. I go up to like 60 or 90 days if I have to,
And the largest factor of when we first dose this coffee and some of what can really go wrong is kind of guessing the dose. Yes, we're starting with 16.5, but from here, we can actually use a couple different test methods to see if we're actually giving our puck enough room to really evenly disperse the water before the extraction.
So you're saying the bed of coffee can be too close to the shower screen, right?
Exactly. So as we're talking about bypass, that will be in favor of certain little areas depending on your shower screen and distribution plate. If that coffee is touching your shower screen, that's all dependent on how good your distribution plate is and how good that. It can go very wrong that way. You want at least half a quarter width of room between your coffee and your distribution plate. And as we talk about CO2, the fresher your coffee is, the more it's actually going to expand within your portafilter and cause more and more issues. So we want that room for that expansion as well. So we might be needing to give like a full quarter's width.
Interesting.
So we actually use something like a quarter. In fact, it is a quarter to test this. So after we tamp here, our tamp pressure actually doesn't really matter too much. I usually teach people anywhere between 4 and 60 pounds of pressure. As long as you're consistent, we can dial in. Now there's a lot of different tools, so we can tamp straight or to the same correct tamp pressure as well, just to keep things as consistent. But if you're using something like this, you know, your typical tamp, kind of want to hold it like a flashlight and then kind of come 90 degrees. And then you want to tamp straight down, kind of putting your body pressure into it a little bit. Don't use too much of your shoulder, or else you get like a barista shoulder and it starts popping out of location. I could probably get it on sound here.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think you've done that before.
Yes. So as long as we're getting a nice, even, flat tamp, you'll see room to succeed, because again, when under pressure, that is where it's seeing all the force that just forces all the coffee down to the bottom anyways. It's like 400 and something pounds of pressure. You can definitely correct me inside the chat on that. But it's seeing all that pressure anyways, so it just needs to be as even as possible before it sees all that and presses down, and then also expands at the same time. Bunch of stuff going on.
Yeah, and you know, I've also got another trick for you. If you don't have a self-leveling tamper, like this Bravo self-leveling and pressurized tamper, pressure regulating tamper, I should say, and you've just got a standard tamper like this Eureka one, for example, my advice to stay consistent is just go pretty hard. The harder you go, the more consistent the pressure is going to be, because you do eventually reach a point where you're not going to get any more actual pressure, right? So if you just go pretty hard, you know, let's say 30 pounds or so, any higher is not really going to make too much of a difference. So, but the big thing is, if you go too light, you're going to see a lot of inconsistencies from shot to shot to shot. That's my best advice when it comes to using a standard tamper like this. Just don't go too light. Also, don't hurt yourself by going too hard. Just go pretty hard. You're generally going to be pretty consistent.
Yeah, so keeping all your variables as similar as possible when dialing in, especially on grind size and dialing in a new grinder, is going to be key. So if you're using a tool, use it every time. If you're leveling out or using a specific pressure, just keep that consistent, or else you're going to be fighting with your grinder all day and likely blame the grinder on the fact that you're just changing things over here.
You're changing variables up too much.
A lot of people like to use jack levelers too, which actually you could just use this. It's self-leveling and tamping. There's a little bit of a weight to it, and it does a fantastic job. But again, if you use this, don't use anything else in between, or else you have to adjust your grind size.
Interesting.
Just slightly.
Yeah, still
right.
interesting.
So now when we're going to tamp, let's go ahead and use this one for the day. So this is going to be a Bravo one, so we can just stay as consistent as possible throughout all of your tamps.
Okay.
So I oftentimes have some sort of mat, or you can place it on top of the mat or off to the corner here. But the key is to keep it as flat as possible. Cool things like this will actually keep it flat because of this outer rim. And then again, I'm just going to use my palm on this one, 90 degrees. And down.
Nice.
I just give it like a one little tap. Now, if you see any residual coffee around your portafilter at all, you can go in for a little bit of a double tap, but make sure that you do that every single time, because you are kind of adding to the pressure, but it does kind of clean up and resurface your outside of your portafilter.
So. Now, a little bit of that I'm usually not too concerned about, partly because I don't want suction when you're bringing the tamper back up. If it's too snug, you're going to create a vacuum, and you're going to create some suction. You're going to dislodge the puck from the sides of the portafilter basket, and that's going to cause channeling around the puck, and you don't want that either. So you know, if you see just a little bit of grounds on the outside, don't worry about it too much unless you're starting to see a a lot coming out from the sides of the basket.
Yeah,
if you're
so
using
just make sure it's set. It's sitting in its seat is what I like to say. Just make sure it's sitting in your seat before
sitting
you
in
go
its seat.
I did actually write something on Reddit a long time ago based off of suction puction. There's a lot of different kinds of these calibrated grinders that will actually suck it up afterwards, and you know it's causing a lot of bypassing because your puck is like this and it's just not sitting in its seat. And I called it suction puction back then.
I love that.
Yep.
I love that. That's great.
All right, so
real quick, artist. So go hard. Yes, don't hurt yourself is all I'm gonna say. Just go hard. That's about it.
Yeah, just go hard. What you feel, just keep going.
Yep.
And then distant horizon. Don't knock your puck after tamping either. Yes, again, this will dislodge it. It won't be sitting in its seat anymore.
You can also create cracks in the coffee bed,
Yes.
and guess what that creates? That creates a channel for the water to just go right through that crack. We don't want that.
So treat this like your little child, very gently after you tamp.
You're a good coffee father,
Yeah,
Zach.
so you know that's why we have these large rubber mats as well if you do need to keep it off to the side. We do recommend keeping this on your machine nice and hot throughout as well.
The portafilter, right?
Yeah, which we can go through that in a different stream or maybe at the end of the day if you do have some questions on permeability and the differences between heat and we don't need to go through it. So.
Well, you're talking my language, but I know what you mean. Yeah. So I'll tell you what. Should we do the quarter trick and see what this looks like here?
Let's go for it. So the quarter trick. You take a quarter. You can find it, at your neighborhood quarter store. I don't know where you find.
I think my
quarters
dad
these
might
days.
have one. Yeah.
And your couch. I don't know. And what we're gonna do is just plop this right on top of our portafilter, right in the center here. Voila.
Nice.
Okay, wow, we're done. So all we're gonna do is not pull our shot, but we're gonna walk over to our E24, and we're gonna gently put this on the machine, and we're going to gently take it off.
So when you do this, you don't want to brew, right?
Correct. We're not brewing, we are just simply inspecting.
So
what I can inspect here is actually the fact that it really just dug into my coffee bed. It's very much level with my coffee bed right now, which is not what I'm looking for. What I want is just like a little bit of an indent left by this quarter. So maybe 16.5 for this certain coffee because of its density. It's filling up to a different amount. It's more porous. It has more air in it. So it's filling up to a higher level than maybe a light roast where it's more dense and kind of more compact. So it'll fill up to a lower level, but at the same gram, which is why we can't say that a portafilter is specifically 20 grams or 18 grams or anything like that because it's dependent on your coffee. So you'll see a lot of portafilters say 18 to 21 grams, or as stock is like 14 to 16 or 18, all depending on your specific coffee though. So
and by the way,
too much coffee.
I will also add we're using the Crema Wave. It's just a little bit of a dark, not too dark, like a medium dark roast. So because of that, the beans are going to be pretty expanded. Even one bean is just going to get much bigger than it was when it was a green bean. Compared to like a light roast or a medium roast, those beans are going to be much smaller, more dense. Exactly. A lot of it might have to do with the roast. You can generally expect a darker roast to be bigger.
So just as an experiment, we can actually go ahead and taste whatever this quarter was, and I'll just go ahead and mess this up, retamp it, and see what too much coffee, excess coffee might pull like.
Sure.
Just to kind of see what's going on. And then we'll decrease the dose, and that will be the one variable that we change on this first shot. Again, changing one variable at a time. If you change dose, that's the only thing that you change. You don't change grind size and dose. You don't know what's going on.
Sure.
You're confusing yourself. At least it confuses me. I don't know. I can do a lot of different things at once and juggle. Actually, I can't juggle. I can only juggle 2 balls at a time, which is not really juggling. I think that's just like passing a ball to yourself back and forth.
You know, you're a good multitasker, but I think I might have you beat on juggling.
Yeah, probably. All right.
Let's see what you got.
We're doing the double tamp. Oh, suction puction.
I see it. Yep.
So you see how fast I was going? I want to go ahead and let this sit for a second. Be gentle. Be very gentle with This poor baby.
Yeah, and I saw that, but I can see it pretty close here.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tony, I see your comment. We could try to get closer to the basket and puck on the next few shots. Yeah.
Yeah. So Ron, we'll just get a little bit closer on my little area over here. This mess of coffee grounds and all this fun stuff. We'll get closer for y'all. All right, John.
I'll tell you what. There will be one variable that's going to be a little bit different. This portafilter has been sitting out in the open and not heated up in the group head. So our temperatures might be a little bit different. We're going to go ahead and do it anyway because we're going to do a bunch of other shots as it is.
So one great thing about the brass boiler is it's going to be very consistent with that temperature throughout its extraction. So one thing that is a huge variable on taste and your grind size is how fast can all these different acids and taste compounds really melt into your cup, let's say. They're dissolving into your cup. And that happens at different temperatures that we can actually perceive different things. So having consistent temperatures, again, it's keeping that variable as similar as possible throughout all of your extractions.
All right.
So John, we see that you're just pulling your shot volumetrically and you're doing time. So we'll actually show a couple issues that this might arise, but this might be how you start your first interaction with pulling espressos is kind of volumetrically, thinking that milliliters and grams, they line up, but we have a very fresh coffee here with a lot of crema. So this can be very difficult to guess.
Wow.
So we're going to have to pour this into a separate cup. I think you tried to pull it in 25 seconds just to see your volume here.
That's exactly right.
I have no clue what John's doing over here, but
no, you're 100% right.
All right.
And I can see that this pulled quite a bit. This is a pretty big shot. It did go a little fast, which and I only know that just from having worked with this machine for so long. But let's see what the actual weight was. Keep in mind we did 16.5 grams, and we end up with 63.2 grams of actual brewed espresso.
All right, so, and what are we going for then? What are we really going for within that 25 seconds or so that you're aiming for?
Yeah, what I'm going for is a 1-to-2 ratio. You probably hear baristas say that term quite a bit. That's what we might call a normale. That's kind of the older language. Now, these days, we kind of talk in terms of ratios more. So a 1-to-2 ratio, with that 16.5 gram dose, all you would do is multiply that by 2. And that's how much brewed espresso you should get. So in this case, that would be 33 grams of actual brewed espresso by weight, not by volume. So what we had was about 63. So we are way over. So what do you think we should do?
So I'm going to cheat a little bit because I feel like we need to decrease our dose because we saw that with our quarter trick that we might need to go to maybe dropping a whole gram, maybe 15 grams or so inside the portafilter. What do you think?
I was thinking 15. Maybe we could do 15.5, bring it down by exactly a gram-ish,
But the first thing that I'm going to want to do before figuring out that actual dose size, if we're decreasing our dose and we were already fast, that means no matter what, we're not going to be successful on this one decreasing our dose alone. Unless it was really creating a lot of crazy bypass due to the fact that it was really touching, which does happen. But one thing that we're going to have to do at this time is decrease our grind size. We want more resistance. We want more of those fines that are, immediately soluble, but also stopping the shot. It's kind of like water flowing through a river is the classic example of, water's going to throw through a river full of coarse boulders a lot faster than a whole bunch of fine sand.
Right.
So we want more fine sand to restrict that flow so we can get closer to that 1-to-2 within that 20 to 30 seconds or so is what we kind of aim for. And then we can kind of dial in from there.
Nice.
So we're going to cheat. And as we go finer, we also grind at the same time. If we think about these flat burrs, which we'll do another live stream going over flat burrs versus conical burrs and all this fun stuff. But flat burrs, they're flat. They look like this. And if there's a whole bunch of coffee when it's coarse, which means it's farther away in between, that means we're just crushing this old coffee and we might get a jam. So if we're moving things finer, so these burrs are going closer and closer, we want them to be spinning at the same time. So as we're going finer and making those little adjustments, grind at the same time so you can kind of arrive at that new grind and not the previous one, and you won't jam.
Yeah, the big thing is definitely going to be jamming as well. If you've already got coffee particles in between your burrs and you go like this, that can create a jam. So if you ever run into that, that may be why.
All right, so
shall we?
I'm going to go ahead and just grind out at the same time here and maybe make a whole mess. Who knows? It's my favorite thing to do.
Well, you know, I do like to say it's coffee. It's the nature of the beast. Mm-hmm. It's a messy business.
All right,
so that's okay.
We're going, let's go to like...
I gotcha.
I made like 2 notches over.
Okay.
I feel like we're not too far away, but we have to think is when we grind a little bit finer too, that's going to leave a little bit of a different level. So we might not even have to change the amount of seconds out on a grinder like this that is actually dosing out in seconds, so you stay consistent. Because when you grind finer, it's actually also more compact. All those little tiny particles are actually fitting closer and closer together, which also creates that restriction, and it's also going to be lower inside your basket.
Are you saying we might not even have to change the dose? We might be able to stick with that 16.5?
We can test it.
All right.
We'll see.
Let's find out. I'll tell you.
In theory, a lot of things are in theory in coffee.
Yeah.
But you'll see that it also proves in practice, especially after the millions and millions of shots that we've pulled in our days.
Right. That's right. You know, there's always a little extra coffee left in the grinding chamber, right in about this area. I'm going to go ahead and let this finish up the rest of the 4 seconds or so, and we'll just get all that coffee out of there. Sometimes, if you're wondering why you're getting a very similar shot to your previous one, there could be a bunch of that older coffee left in your chamber. Very common with pretty much every grinder except one style of grinder that we're going to get to in just a second.
So although machines aren't blowing up on you anymore and exploding, everything is still out to get you. Like everything is out to get you. There's too many variables at hand that are always going to be against you, and there's always variables that are fighting each other too. So right now I'm keeping my portafilter, hot and ready to go, but then when it comes to that, there's also moisture inside here that will also create bypassing and channeling and all this fun stuff. So then you also have to wipe it off. Make sure it's clean every single time, or else you have coffee oils. Everything can kind of go wrong.
If you keep it clean, it's going to taste better anyway. So.
All right, so let's get our next dose.
Okay, sounds good.
I think I did it okay.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll find out.
Let's find out. That's what today's all about.
Yep.
In fact, I mean, dialing in is all about finding out in real time anyway. So here we go.
So for this next one too, maybe what we'll do is actually use a scale underneath. You'll start seeing that no matter what we do, we want to kind of quantify what we're doing as in real time as possible. So you often see us using scales to make sure our dose is exactly the same every single time. You'll see scales as our espresso is being pulled out, because if you see different flow within your shot at different times, that's a good thing to kind of notate as it's going by. Does it take a few seconds for you to get that first initial drip? And maybe it's not a fresh coffee. That could be many different things, like a really high heat as well. If you're brewing way too hot, you can have a lot of restriction because of the interaction between high temps and everything inside your coffee. It's almost melting all of these solubles, and it can actually create more restriction. And you'll actually see it on the other hand too. If you've ever pulled a shot when your machine is not all the way warmed up yet, you'll see really fast flow because that cold water will just pull straight through it. It won't have any restriction, you won't have any crema, so ensuring that you have a similar temperature throughout your extraction, that's why it's important.
Very important, yeah. And speaking of which, I've got 16 grams, not 16.5. What do you think?
But it looks way smaller this time.
It does.
Definitely looks way smaller this time.
Yeah. You want to
Ron
show
actually
us your...
has our new camera angle too.
Tony, there you go.
All zoomed in here.
Yeah.
And it is a lot less coffee here. So you'll see that I can actually see the rims. It's not really piled up or anything like that. On a lot of other grinders too, you'll see that it creates a lot of air between all of its particles. It's really fluffy, so it mounds up a lot. So oftentimes I judge these based off of what I get after a little WDT.
Now,
see that
what
it's
you're
almost
doing here is you're breaking up the clumps, right?
exactly, and I'm also just getting some consistency between other grinders just so I can identify if I have enough coffee, which it's like right about at the rim there. Then we'll go ahead and use a distribution tool, which I think you used this last time, so
Yep.
I think we're just going to stay consistent with that.
Okay.
Voila.
And with those, that's really all it takes, just a couple of spins, right?
Yep, exactly. And we can actually now see, last time, there's actually this rim on the inside of our basket. Last time it was very much basically in line with that rim last time. So there's a lot more room on this one. So let's go ahead and just pull this shot, assuming that we're going to be okay.
Sure.
I'll give it one more little polish with our tamp just so we're consistent.
Oh yeah, you're a double tamp guy, right?
I am a double tamp kind of guy. Yeah. All right, and we're going to go ahead and pull this next shot.
Nice.
Again, we have the comments down below if you're joining us now. If you have any questions on grinding, dialing in, we're here for it. Right now we're actually dialing in this Gadget E24 with a Magnifico, and then we're going to jump into our dual boiler. That changes it all, and some of our top tier grinders, what that does with our different kinds of distribution and what's going on here.
All right. Now, this Varia AccuScale mini scale actually has a, oops, there we go.
It has an
Now
espresso setting.
It has an espresso setting. It's got a timer on it as well. I'm going to utilize that. I'm going to start the timer at the same time that I start my shot.
And these scales that we use for espresso are very, very sensitive. They're sensitive by air, basically. So when comparing something that you might find on Amazon that might get you by, you'll also notice that you almost want to stop your shot a little bit early because the scale hasn't caught up quite yet, which is why a lot of the espresso scales that we use right now, you're pulling in real time so you can do something like this. So with Amazon kinds of scales or cheaper scales, you might not be able to pull in real time unless you're actually stopping the shot earlier than what it says. But
Right.
this is actually showing how many grams it is at that time. It's also why there's a little bit of a price tag in front of it sometimes. Varia makes that a little bit easier. It's a little more affordable. They have the Accu, this Accu Mini, and the Accu Pro as well. So a couple different options, but it's all going to make a huge difference when it comes to your final cup and your espresso, especially when you're trying to succeed like we maybe just did. Did I guess right?
You know,
we were a little slow.
We were close. We were a little bit slow. So this was 32 grams-ish. I'm at, what, 31.4, which is like about as close as you get sometimes. And this one took about 45 seconds. So that's a little longer than I typically like.
Gotcha. So that's just based off of seconds, but you try everything, right?
Oh, I try everything.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
we try everything all the time. So what I'm going to do is grab us some cups here. Oh, those are better. Let's use those.
One for you, sir.
Oh, wonderful.
All right.
And always try everything. As you're going through this dial-in process, figure out what you like. You might mess up these ratios where all of a sudden you're pulling a 1-to-1 like a ristretto, and it's very strong and short. Or a 1-to-2 like a normale, and you're like, okay, I'm staying there. Or you accidentally pull a lungo. Try everything. You might find a coffee that likes a certain kind of recipe that might be just outside of the standard of what you're looking for. Some of the best coffees I've ever had are with world champions, and they're pulled at 18 seconds, and they're absolutely amazing. It tastes like you're drinking like Fruit Loop juice.
Well, let's see if we got something close to it here.
And honestly, it's still not bad.
It's really not bad.
No.
Yeah. You know, you could probably, I'm getting quite a bit of mouthfeel, a good amount of bitterness, but there's plenty of sweetness here too, like that baker's chocolate kind of sweetness.
Yeah.
And
which is very pleasant. You'll find what you kind of like. But when first tasting this espresso, the first thing I do is just, okay, assess sweetness. Can you process this as sweet? Can I process this as something sweet? And then I can process it as something good. But a lot of people want the bitterness as well. So this is like a baker's dark chocolate.
Yeah.
There's the bitterness. So a lot of people would like this.
Oh yeah, you know, I can think of a lot of people that I know that if I served this to them, they'd be like, "That's a really good shot." I personally would probably make it just a little bit coarser. I think we might have overshot and gone a little too fine, but not even by much.
Yeah.
We were actually pretty close.
We actually have another great question right now. Tony, how does pre-wetting the puck and opening up the steam valve prior to pulling the shot affect the extraction? Well, this all has to do with temperature and the similar temperature throughout the puck. I was kind of talking about how at different temperatures we're extracting different taste compounds throughout. And you'll always see a higher temperature at the top side and then lower temperatures at the bottom side. And throughout those different temperatures, there might be some things that you really like and then don't like and weren't quite there. And if we pre-wet and saturate our whole puck to the same temperature and also enable it to be more permeable, because when you saturate something, it can extract a lot better. It's expanding and you can actually get through it a lot better. My analogy is kind of like wet concrete can pass through a tube, but dry concrete, it'll kind of knock against each other and kind of clog.
Pretty similar concept.
Very similar to that. But here, the taste when pre-wetting in something like a Gaja is more so about the similar property of a similar temperature throughout. So you'll actually find a different taste. Maybe not in an overall different extraction on pre-wetting, besides the time it takes to pre-wet and all that fun stuff, but it will taste different.
And you're going to certainly get a more even extraction throughout as well. Earlier when I was talking about you might have a mound of coffee over here and not too much over there, and then you go ahead and tamp that, try to pull it on the machine, you're going to get an uneven extraction. This is another concept that helps you get more evenness in your extraction.
Yeah, so a lot of this has to do with different techniques that we use when using maybe a grinder that has a lot of issues with it. Or maybe you didn't spend the most money on a grinder and you're just getting by, which is totally fine. You just have to find your way around it. But let's say that you have the budget to buy a grinder and you're like, I just want it to be perfect every time. I want that nice fluffy grounds every single time. I don't even want to use WTT. I just want to use a tamp. I just want to go, right? Well, do we have a grinder for you? No. We have plenty of grinders for you that will work, and a lot of that comes to do with single dosing. So single dosing, it's a great entryway into getting to that fluffy duffy grind, whatever you might call it, those mounds of air and
I like
grind size.
I like fluffy duffy. That was good.
I kind of like fluffy duffy too. So the VS3 here. So this is a very affordable way to get into that fluffy grind size and really controlling all those variables all the way down to its burr. So conical burrs, unlike the Magnifico over here, they actually produce a little more restriction because they naturally produce some more fines. Now we'll find that in a little iffy depending on what kind of conical that you have, because you can easily switch these out into whatever kind of variation of particle distribution that you really want. So that is the typical tale of the difference of conicals versus flat. But with this, it kind of throws all that out the water, because now we can just have all the control we want with conicals.
Right.
So right here, we can go ahead and dose out, grind out, and pull anything that we want in any way we want with all the control. It's really designed just for espresso. And it's designed for more of the ritual of making coffee. I mean, you're going through a process here. It's a slow feed on purpose, so everything is as consistent as possible. Really nice materials as well. And this is the entryway into kind of new beginnings of different things. And you can start looking at different variables like how I'm storing my coffee, what I'm storing my coffee in. Am I freezing my coffee? That is the world of the single dose. That might not be your world, it's my world. I love this world, but
I love that world too. Yep.
But you might also want something, with a bigger burr set. You want uniformity. You want something clear. You don't care too much about crema, but you want that single origin, really fruity, nice world champ cup, right?
Yeah. Nice high acidity, a lot of sweetness.
Yeah.
Floral.
Yeah. You can get that in both the single dose, or you step it up to the big boy, like the 83 millimeter Chiato here, the E37S. So they have amazing burrs that you can also switch out to from SSP. All of these different burrs really just ensure that instead of those fines that something like a conical might produce, where it has those natural restriction, those fines are immediately soluble. And they also attribute a lot to the bitterness as well. So if we have something of all the same particle sizes as much as possible, well, we can control a lot of those variables. But it can also cause some issues on that natural restriction. So maybe it's not the best grinder for a Gaja. It could be. I mean, it's going to be a great.
Of course.
It's just quadruple the price. Where it might be a better pair for something like a dual boiler or something that you can use with flow control, where you can kind of control that flow out before it goes through this uniform grind size.
Sure. Yeah, and you know, I'm wondering if we should try to dial in that Varia VS3.
I wonder. I don't know.
I wonder.
I wonder.
You know, we've got a nice coffee today. We've got the our Columbia Tolima that you'll find on the Whole Latte Love website. Want to try and pull that and see what we get?
Let's do it.
All right.
All right. So today we're risking it for the biscuit. We got. Here we go. We got a bottomless portafilter here. So what's really cool about these Ride dual boilers is that it's actually interchangeable with different kinds of ends. So let's say you don't want to pull a bottomless because maybe you have a single origin over here that's super dense, and you know it's always going to channel. Sometimes channeled coffee is still really good coffee. It doesn't depict a lot, it just depicts what the density of that coffee is. It could still be super tasty.
Oh yeah.
So sometimes I'll just kind of put a cap on it so I don't see it.
Then you're not gonna have a predetermined notion of what happened with the shot, and you can just enjoy it and just see what happened anyway.
Exactly. So much of what tastes good too is so mental. If you see it spraying everywhere and everything like that, you may perceive it as not as good already before even trying your coffee. It just doesn't taste as good.
The power of suggestion will get you.
The power of suggestion.
Yeah.
It's the same way why coffee can sometimes taste worse in a really loud coffee shop in comparison to at home in a quiet space. So
Absolutely. Yeah. All those things matter. The color of your coffee mug, it all matters. But
And this
that's
also
one for
traps
another
in
day.
heat. Yeah, so this also traps in heat. So if you are having any sort of heat issues, bottomless portafilters, by the time you taste that espresso, might have cooled down. Maybe it's a little too acidic tasting. You want it a little bit hot, right? A little hotter. And when you first initially taste your espresso, this is one way to keep things hotter.
Hotter. Yeah. Yeah, it's
Why
pronounced.
is that one of those words that just doesn't seem real right now?
No, I think-
hotter.
I think you
No,
said it correct. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm saying it correct, but
Yeah.
it's one of those words right now. All right, so let's go ahead and pull a shot. So
Nice.
would you like to single dose for me?
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I've got a new bag of Columbia Tolima right here. What do you think? Is that an 18-gram basket? What do we got basket-wise?
All right, so right in here, we have a Barista Pro basket. So
Nice.
Barista Pro basket. So we're now dealing with a flat sidewall. So lots of issues that can happen with these flat sidewalls, but we can also get naturally this really nice even extraction if we do it right. So these things are notorious to being at your local coffee shop. You know, they're everywhere there and around barista competitions due to the fact that it can pull some of the world's best coffees out there, and you can succeed with it as long as it's nice and warm and sitting on your portafilter.
Well, here we go. I'm going to go with 18 grams. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, let's go ahead and go for 18 grams. This is an 18-gram Barista Pro. Some of these baskets just give you one number, which is kind of funny. But slowly they're growing to actually give you a range, depending on if you're a light roast or dark roast. Again, I just want to reiterate, if it's a dark roast, you actually might be able to fit less coffee, as in less grams of coffee, to fill to the same amount as a light roast, to maybe 21 grams. So your 18 grams of dark roast will fit to the same level as 20 grams of a light roast. And when we're dialing in, what is important is that dose, that depth of your dose. So if you're actually giving it enough room between the shower screen and your coffee puck, that is going to be key here.
Now, Zach, I just did a little bit of a water droplet spray. We call that the RDT technique, Ross droplet technique. The guy that came up with it, his name was Ross. Now he's forever immortalized.
From Friends?
From Friends, I
Yeah.
think it was the same guy.
Yeah.
No, and so I'm just finding the 0 point on this grinder here, the same way that we did with the Magnifico. I'm gonna back it off to about, I had it at 0. Let's go with 3 and see what we get here.
Guess as good as yours, John. But what's also great about these grinders specifically is that they're very consistent. Once you find that 0, all of them kind of dial in at the same time until your grinder starts wearing out. If you notice that you are not dialing into the same number with the same coffee anymore, and it keeps drifting on you, that means your burrs are actually starting to wear out. So you'll want to start looking into new burrs from there. So there are signs that over time that you just can't find the same grind anymore. It's just not like it used to be in the old days, you know? That's when you need a new burr.
Michael's got the Chiato single doser. Loves the simplicity. Yeah, and
yes,
you know,
definitely.
And Michael, if you were here earlier when I mentioned that that the grinding chamber on hopper-fed grinders will hold on to a half a gram, sometimes up to like 2 or 3 grams of coffee, you know that your single dosing technique by using these bellows right here will get everything out, so that way your coffee is even fresher than on a hopper-fed grinder.
Yeah, so it comes with this nice, simple dosing cup, but Varia also has dosing cups that will fit to your portafilter. What's really nice about that is that I can just put a hat on it. I have all these weird things. Did you notice that? I just say so many weird things.
You're great about it,
you
though.
You just put a hat on it, and then you flip it around, and then it's wearing the hat now.
Oh.
And it's also wearing its coffee that you want inside the portafilter without spilling any everywhere like we do constantly.
No, you're putting the brain in its head. Yeah, very good.
So when using this, it's a very simple, very nice dosing cup. I oftentimes actually get the one where I'm direct to dose to my portafilter. Unless you have a funnel or anything like that, it can be kind of difficult, but luckily these fit right on there. Super nice. So I'll actually kind of transfer this over into my other cup. Give it a little shake. You can always do like a WDT before we even get there, just to ensure that there's
just kind of rake it up a little bit. Yeah.
You'll notice that this is just super light, fluffy, amazing grinds.
Grins is how you pronounce it. Yeah,
grins.
You got it.
We got our grins inside here. You notice how easy that hat was, right? Very stylish.
Oh, good looking.
All of a sudden, we just have a nice bed of coffee.
Nice.
So oftentimes when we use those kinds of dosing and we're kind of dosing into these portafilters, it does need a little bit of a WDT. So I take my tools here, rake it off to the sides. But what is amazing about this is the distribution of our grind sizes. This is such a, you just know when you hit a nice distribution and it just looks so fluffy and you want to take a picture of it because of the way that it just shines in the light, especially with a light roast. Oh my gosh, it's great. You'll find it with that E6C Chameleon as well. A lot of these single dosers are just, it's beautiful. It's the process. It's the ritual of doing this is why we do it, right? All right, so we're gonna use the same tools. The same person, I guess that's a variable, right?
Yeah, sure. You know.
Oh, we're on a new machine though. I guess
everything is different now. We're going in blind right now.
What's great about these bottomless portafilters, which a lot of people like, is that you can kind of like leave it flat on whatever surface you're on. And it's really easy to kind of get that flat tamp, especially when you just have something where you're kind of holding it like a doorknob and going 90. So that's pretty great. Sometimes I like to still kind of do a little finish.
Just check. Yeah.
Just do a little finish.
Just a little finish.
Ron, can we get, yeah, there we go.
Ah.
A little finish. Okay.
Beautiful.
All right.
Polished.
So polish, I like to polish the top as well, so this doesn't kind of dirty up your machine because we don't want that.
I do that a lot too. I call this cleaning the ears because I don't want coffee grinds getting on the inside of my group head either.
Always behind the ears. A little soap. No soap. Please don't do soap. But
not on that, at least.
Word vomit. All right, so before I pull my shot, maybe I'll warm up my group head a little bit because it's the first shot here. I'm always going to clean as I go, so I need some rags.
Very nice.
Wipe off this.
And I've got a scale for you and a volumetric shot glass there.
All right, so if this sprays all over me, I'm blaming it on you.
That's okay.
All right, so
I can handle
finding your portafilter too, gently put it on. I recommend practicing without coffee a few times. Or else many things can go wrong, okay? Don't do it. You'll start channeling out of nowhere and you don't know what's going on. And it was just because you were fumbling around, really.
So you're saying putting it in the group head, if you hit it too hard against something, that'll be the same thing as tapping it on the side with the tamper, which used to be the kind of the old school thing to do, right?
Yep, exactly. So, all right, we're ready for our shot.
Well, let's party. I'm thirsty.
So you'll see on this dual boiler, heat's going to be really nice. It's going to stay at that consistent heat the whole entire time, so our distribution might be different. And right there, we saw that it took a second, right? So maybe it started with a really high heat, or something was different, because we hit 40 grams in like no time.
Like
flat. That was
15-ish seconds
16
or so.
Yeah. So
And now my grind setting was 3 on the Varia VS3.
all right. So everyone in the comments, what would we do now? No comments? Okay, cool. So basically what we're going to do is use a triangulation. We were way too coarse at 3. Maybe we try a 2.8 or whatever. Yeah, maybe a 2.8,
Sure.
something like that.
Yeah.
If that's not quite it, maybe that was too fine, that's okay. I'm going to use triangulation. Somewhere in between that is my nice shot.
That's right.
Something that we want there. So we're going to go ahead and do that.
Let's go ahead and do it.
I'm still going to do the thing where we try everything
Yeah,
for
you
the
know-
sake of science and you all out there.
And if you want to pour me some too, I'm interested. Yeah. So same thing, 18 grams, keep everything consistent, right?
Keeping everything consistent. The only variable we're changing on this one is grind size.
Nice.
And
All
now
right.
the only difference between the single dose and what we're going to be going to in our 83 millimeter flat burr is the fact that it has like a worm drive sort of thing. So it's pretty easy to dial in on this sorts of thing. You'll start looking at more and more grinders on like how easy it is to kind of like make these small adjustments. So VS3 and the Chiato are very similar in that fact that you're just making these small little incremental adjustments, and they make a huge difference. Like 2 little fine tick points on a Chiato will change it by like 6 seconds, 7
lot.
seconds. It's insane. So using something like that where you have that ability is amazing. That's what you usually get out of these kinds of grinders, because sometimes you'll get your single your single origin grinder. It's super dense. You have to go really fine because maybe it's really coming out like a very uniform. It's not creating too many natural restrictions from those fines, and you're already bottoming out your grinder. You're already almost zeroing. You're touching the burr and it can't go any finer, but you want it to go finer, so you have to adjust all these other burrs. It's not a good day. It's a horrible day. So a good grinder is key to success when you
Huge.
want to dial in those kinds of coffees. Something like a dark roast, a blend, something that will produce a lot of those fines naturally without relying on your grinder to do that for you would be key. So that's why a lot of people adjust for conical and all these different grinders. I'm really rambling because we're almost out of time. We're going to pull this successful shot. I'm going to get through some comments and maybe call it a day there.
And Zach,
All
I'm
right.
taking you for a loop. You wanted 2.8, I'm doing 2.7. I just wanted to go a little bit finer. So that it's on me if it doesn't work, okay?
Okay. We're going to blame John on this. If it doesn't taste good,
What else is new, man?
give him some grief in comments. That's what I would say. Put his name on Reddit. Like this, John didn't do this one thing on Reddit.
Good
so.
Lord, maybe
Yeah.
not. Here we go.
All right, so we have some more comments, and I'm really ADHD, so I'm like reading all of them at the same time. Kind of confusing my brain. So let's start from the top here. All right, so RTIST. Can we name the go hard but don't suck technique after you guys? Yes. That sounds
Yeah,
great.
I like that.
The Jay-Z technique?
For yes. For better or for worse, sure.
All of a sudden, we're rappers that have designed our own technique.
I
In
got
case you missed it, it's John and Zach technique.
I got no bars though, to be honest with you.
I got some. Maybe I'll rap for you guys one day.
Oh man, yeah, that'll be its own live stream.
All right, so let's see. GHDS technique. Oh, there you go. What group head pressure do you think you were brewing or you're hitting? Oh, so
Good
group head pressure
question.
on that amount of seconds. Again, it depends on the permeability of your shot. You won't hit that quite that 9 bar if your shot's going really fast. That's something to keep in mind. But if you have a good restriction and you're hitting like that 25 to 30 gram or 30 second shot, you'll see that stock bar pressure on the E24 hit about 9 bars of pressure. Now there's other machines where you can actually adjust that, OPV and all that fun stuff, which is something that's really fun to kind of mess around with, that different kinds of pressure. You'll actually find different kinds of tasting shots throughout that too. It's just one more thing to add though in all the variables that we're really just initially trying to adjust with our grind size. But when it comes to tasty shots, there's a lot of coffees that I like to stay as coarse as possible with this grind size. So something like pressure is a nice thing to change.
Shall we? And you know what? And by the way, it's Artist is that username.
Oh,
Get
wow.
it? There you go.
I'm not as witty as I thought because
now,
that's way more witty.
You had a good question. What pressure do we think we're brewing at? That's going to be this dial right here. I'm going to let you know right now.
Yeah.
And that is adjustable on this machine. So here we go. Our PID screen becomes a shot timer on this machine. That's kind of nice. So Zach, we're going to find out if...
yeah, we're right at 9 bar.
Yeah.
And it's staying steady there. And
you know what?
honestly, you were doing pretty good there.
This is looking okay.
Yeah, it's moving pretty fast towards the
It
ladder
is a little
end
fast.
here.
Yeah.
I know it's a little hard to see because the portafilter completely blocked that whole entire extraction, but we'll maybe get a close-up
Yeah,
right now.
you got to believe us. Yeah, this was about 20 seconds, and this was 32 grams. I probably could have gone one more second to get it to 36 to make it a true 1-to-2 ratio. 18 in, 36 out, right? So Zach, do you want to try this with me? And
No, I think we didn't even try the last one. I'm just kidding. I'll try it.
Actually, you're right. Let's try this last one.
Yeah, so I typically tell people to try their espresso within like 90 seconds, so this is probably going to be a little bit sour.
Yeah.
A little bit sour.
It's a little sour.
Yep.
There's plenty of sweetness. It's kind of nice,
It's actually pretty nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll go ahead and split that one. I'm still reading all of these at the same time, so my brain... John, can you help me out here with these comments?
Yeah.
And we'll probably call it a day.
Yeah, here you go. All right. I think you're a little higher, lower than me. What group had pressure? Yep. Okay, can't say for sure.
Bean feed rate with an auger helps as well. Yes. So bean feed rate, that's going to keep the most consistent grind size throughout every single bean that you're grinding. So the bean feed rate on the Varia is very slow, so your grind size is as similar as possible. And that just means like when you're throwing a whole bunch of stuff inside of it, sometimes things are bouncing around at different kinds of rates, and it's not going to be grinding as similar as possible. Whereas if you're feeding each bean, it's more than likely doing the same thing every single time.
Right. Yeah, lower RPM is going to help with that as well. Much more consistent grounds for the most part. Most rules are meant to be broken, but you know, you can in general rely on that.
Consistency is key, and that's what the 83 millimeter Chiato E37S over there that we did not have time to get to will do. It's super easy to dial in.
Yeah, rest assured, it's pretty much the same process that we did on the other bean-fed, hopper-fed grinder, the Eureka Magnifico. Make sure you find that 0 point and then back it off quite a bit, and you'll in general be in pretty good shape. The worm gear on there is very fun to work with. But this is our a little bit short, maybe a little bit quick, but not too quick.
I'm getting lost over here
espresso?
with all of our stuff.
Yeah. Hey, shall we?
Oh yeah, cheers again.
Cheers, sir. Come on, don't leave me
I already
hanging.
drank it. All right. So, a couple more things here. Someone needs to help me with latte art so I can make a nice
We could do another
mushroom cloud. Yes, we can definitely do another latte art live stream for you.
Oh yeah, that's going to be another fun one.
Yeah, definitely. I'm hitting 3 bar max, 40 gram shot in 35 seconds. There's some issues there.
Yeah. Give us a buzz. We can see what's going on with that. Yeah.
Using a grinder like a chameleon, all-purpose, which no, not all-purpose. That is an all-purpose.
Right.
Versus an espresso grinder. Are there less notches to dial in for espresso? Why would one want to get an espresso grinder only versus an all-purpose grinder?
Yeah, that's a good question. You know, I think in my experience, I see a lot of espresso-only grinders have even more notches for a shorter range. And what I mean by that is, you know, on that chameleon, you can get pretty coarse over here and then pretty fine over here. But your espresso range is really just kind of over here, right? So not quite as much range to play with as you would on an espresso grinder, where your range might be like pretty big and you've got all these little notches right there.
Yeah.
However, I will also say I love working with the chameleon grinder for both drip and espresso. I've been able to get really consistent results. It's just one of my favorite grinders
And
out
back
there.
in the day, all-purpose grinders were really difficult with that. It was a very small range, but now with the movement within studying different kinds of burr geometries and different kinds of burr material, we're actually able to increase the amount of grind size that we can really have on an all-purpose. So this is more of a current thing. Back in the day, we would have to go espresso only because geometry would allow us for that.
Right, right, yeah, that's exactly right, yeah.
All right, so I think with that and that final espresso, that's going to end our live stream for today. But thank you so much for joining us and all the comments. My name's Zach.
And I'm John.
And we'll see you next time.
Cheers, y'all.